News team, assemble!
It's back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carey, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, it is the unofficial 40 podcast. Welcome back. Here we are in the studio, and everybody is here, including myself, my sorry-ass self, who... it's not real time, so you don't really know, but I kind of overslept this morning after the radio show. So we are here, and apologies to the fellows, but we will get back on it. We got a lot to get to as OU practices are ongoing. We'll have our second viewing coming up later today. We're going to get an hour and 45 minutes this time instead of 90. We've had all kinds of stuff going on at the office. By the way, boys, congratulations. We got our building permit. It's finally f***ing done.
Beautiful.
Now, I was reading some of the terms and conditions. I think I have to give I don't know if I'm qualified to do this, but apparently I have to give some kind of talk about fire to everyone who's working on the building.
Well, I have put out a fire before.
I've started a lot of fires.
Luckily. Yeah,
I am a hero.
That's a good mix. You got a fire starter and a fire putter.
I bet Eddie's the biggest fire starter out of everybody.
Not a big
here.
fire guy.
Not a big
Don't
arson
really like
guy?
The what?
Not a big arson guy?
No, not really. I don't really pertain to that.
You're just more insurrections is your style.
I'm not even I'm pretty against insurrections.
I guess that's a good thing. You're worried about the algorithm, aren't you?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. I'm happy to get my computer back today, though. I felt naked over the last couple days.
Oh, my God. Eddie's got his old
got
computer,
the old school
Josh. I don't know
computer
if you
back
can
out.
see that.
Oh,
I think you can.
no, I can.
I got the old school computer
Josh,
back.
this is probably on Josh because he's Mr. Apple. I mean, the Apple computer just completely, it malfunctioned.
Completely kaput on me on Sunday, but we're good to go.
And you should be angry at it because it made you go to the Apple store, which is the
I had to go to the
hell.
Apple store twice in a matter of 4 days because I had to get my phone fixed on Friday.
The Apple Store is one of the worst places to go. I do not like it.
It is a terrible, terrible place, but once you get in and you're able to see a technician or whatever,
Yes.
it's awesome.
Is there more than one in Oklahoma City now?
No, there's only the one in
my
Penn
God.
Square.
There's just a
Still only
bunch of.
one?
I just think there's a bunch of douchebags that work at Apple too, though, because they
But I
always
have-
make you feel so stupid when you
Says
go
the
in there.
man
That's-
with a Lenovo.
Yeah, it's great. I've had no issues with my Lenovo.
I will
but you
say,
go to the
though-
Apple Store and they're like, "Well, you're probably not taking care of it the right way."
You
And
think
it's
like the Best
nobody said
Buy
that to me.
workers are there's a rivalry between the Apple Store people and the Best Buy?
Oh, there's
Geek
definitely
Squad?
The Geek
a
Squad
tier
sucks,
system
too.
among those people that the Apple
They
people
look
are
down
definitely 100%.
Someone looks down
Yes.
on the other one.
100%.
The Geek Squad,
the Apple
though-
people look down on the Best Buy people for sure.
Well, and they should. I mean, they're better. But the Geek Squad people, though, they really think they're something special, and they're not.
I found as I sat in there having to wait around on Monday morning, I found the I don't even know what they're called, the tutorials that they do for these people to come in and learn your phone and all that kind of stuff. I find it just mind blowing.
The Apple Store
Yeah.
tutorials thing?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't even if I get anything from Apple,
that's
now, I just get it
crazy.
delivered.
It reminded me of.
Have you guys been in there when it's happening?
Yeah, that's what I'm
it's
talking about. As I sat there,
it's insane.
They were showing how to use the camera, and I was just thinking to myself, my God, I can see why we're at where we're at in this country.
I remember the last
not
time I
good.
went to an Apple store, I had an appointment, and I got there, or no, I didn't have an appointment, and they said, hey, just get here early. We think we can fit you in. It's a slow day. And I got there, and there was a 70-year-old man holding a full desktop-style Apple computer. And just holding. I was like, sir, you could just set that down. This store's not opening for 30 minutes. If you want to sit there and hold it, I can't in good conscience just not tell you to put it down.
The big wave over there, when I was there over the last couple days, has been people coming in to learn how to use the VR stuff.
The goggles.
So they're just punching it into the air, and it's very what was the show on HBO that was predicting the future?
The
Recently,
Nostradamus thing?
No, it was recently. I thought.
Oh, okay.
Huh? On what?
I thought it was HBO, maybe Netflix. I never watched it. Never
Maybe in the
mind.
future. I don't know. I
can't
watched
remember.
the Nickelodeon documentary.
Oh, did you really?
Ruined my childhood.
Well, you knew that guy was creepy looking.
Yeah, but I didn't know that, like, some of the, like, they showed, like, clips of the old shows that were, like, so inappropriate. And at the time, I had no idea. As a kid, I look back, I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah, that guy was a weirdo.
They had a bunch of, like, pedophiles.
George, you will
Nickelodeon.
revisit this as you get older and watch shit with your kids someday, and it's just like, oh my god, like I thought this was okay, and then there's all sort like
You realize behind the
the
scenes
old
that
Robin
stuff's going
Hood,
on, yeah.
There's a lot of stuff where you're like, oh, that joke's not okay, that's not appropriate.
Well, they had
but
two pedophiles working
you're
on
little,
staff.
like, well. But you also realize, like, you're little. Like, it's okay that it goes over their head. Like, we as parents, everybody's like, oh, I got to freak out about this. I'm like, they don't know. It's fine. We didn't know. It's fine.
Real quick, before we get into spring football, Josh, I want you to know that I found out that I have limits today in terms of finances. I really thought that I wanted to get, like, a sleep pod for, like, the office. I think we've been talking about
Carrie's
this for a
trying to
while.
move into the office, is what he's telling you.
I'm trying to live here. No. And I thought, okay, well, you know, what could it be? $2-3 something like that. No, the sleep pod it's like the starter sleep pod.
20?
$14,500.
Jesus.
Oh, my.
See, I think you're better off just buying a couch.
Or just
Like
driving home. And
We
going
could
to bed.
like rent a room at the Noun for a year and just probably just walk over there and sleep anytime we wanted to
Yeah,
for that.
that's true.
I have a couch in one of our rooms that is insanely comfortable. You could absolutely sleep there. I will absolutely donate it to the office. It's not a problem.
Problem is, I think if I buy a couch, George is going to dominate that because he's been asking for a couch since day
Carrie,
one.
you would dominate that couch.
I don't think I could sleep.
See,
there.
Carrie,
I'm not a
this
couch
is
sleeper.
I don't know
this
if I
is an
could either.
interesting conversation because for those, all of our new members don't remember, or all of our new listeners may not remember, this all used to be going on in Carrie's house. And so Eddie would go over there and they'd record from the house, and like the studio slowly took over Carrie's house. So we got the office so that he wouldn't have to do that, and now his house is slowly becoming the office. Like
you're
it's
saying the office
it's
is
a
becoming
scary
my
scale.
house, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
100%.
Exactly right.
I just didn't realize I'd be here so long. I mean, for in the days. I mean, I knew we were going to be doing all this other stuff, but I didn't know it's not uncommon. See, here's the thing that I've learned is like I need to get out of here by 9:00 because nothing good is open after 9:00, like eating wise. You're stuck with fucking Taco Bell or McDonald's. Like there's just not a lot of quality choices other than going home, and then it takes 30 minutes to prepare your meal when you get home. So anyway, all right.
That's why you put a call out for maybe some interns. I could come help do something.
I know, I did. Yeah,
That'd be great.
we're working on that. Here's the thing: we need people that know like video and stuff, but you need to be local because here's the thing: people don't understand. We're dealing with 4K files, and I cannot quickly send you a 40-minute or a 30-minute show to edit. It takes all night for you to download a file that big. I mean, we're talking, what are they, Eddie? Like 160 gigabytes is probably a regular file size.
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, they're massive. So, like, hey, I shoot video and I live in Wisconsin. Like, that's unfortunately not going to work, which, not that big of a deal. All right, we are well into this, and we have spring football going on. As I said, the first viewing we got on Monday, 90 minutes. And I'll say this for Brent, like, I lodged a complaint because, I want you guys to be able to have photo and video and see what's going on. And a big part of what we're doing, nowadays is showing you guys that stuff and breaking it down. And I mean, I want you guys to see Deion Burks and what David Stone looks like compared to DeJoun Terry and all those guys. And, defensively, how good that secondary looks. So and we're going to get that tonight. But I will say this. It was almost like, and Josh, you understand this, it's back in the day when you were interning for the Sports Animal, you and Muffin or whatever her name was, and you would come out to practice, and you could just stand there and you could just watch it. And I bet at some point you were out there so much you're just like, I really don't want to go back today. Like, I've seen enough football practice. Like, I don't need to go back. But like
You got bored with it.
you got bored, and you would just show up for team, which was 11 on 11 at the end of practice because that was the really exciting thing to watch.
That's like NFL training camp.
Yeah, is that how you guys would do
Every single day you're out there.
You
for
learn what part
2.5
of the periods
hours.
to show up
Yes,
for. Yeah.
yeah.
So are you saying that you could show up halfway through, or did you have to? Be
You could
there from
you
the
could show up whenever, but I was out there the whole day because you would watch things like you're trying to see who's going to be the 53-man roster, and
Yeah.
so like you need to be out there when they're doing special teams because that's how guys would make the roster, and you could kind of tell who's on that fringe, but and one-on-ones and stuff like that. But like you got used to being out there for 2.5 hours every single day.
But I know Eddie could speak to this too. But I was standing there, and after 10 minutes, I was feeling like guilt. I was like, man, you need to be shooting. Like,
Yeah, it was kind of nice. It was kind of nice for a second.
But it was nice. It was like, you need to be shooting, and I was getting nervous, and I was like, I'm not doing my job, and then I realized, oh, I can't. They're not allowing me. And then when you just kind of settled in, and you're like, all I have to do is sit here and watch and like take things in and write stuff down, and like, oh, there's a note. Like, oh, that's,
I wrote nothing down.
Yeah, but George, I think.
Did you write something down?
I was
I wrote lots of
taking
stuff
notes on
down.
my phone and then obviously putting some stuff on the board. But I mean, I don't usually have to shoot, so I kind of enjoyed just sitting there watching practice. And you can take away a lot. I mean, definitely there's some periods
It was
where you're
nice
not.
to be able to get out of there and talk about somebody like a David Stone with a little bit of more conviction than just saying, yeah, it sounds like he's been doing good.
Or like-
I actually
yeah.
saw him blow up a couple plays on during the inside team portion.
Right.
Well, and just to, for me, I would say, and by the way, as we get into kind of breaking down what we saw, this is the Enjoy Vision look around, and from the fresh perspective of Enjoy Vision, which Eddie Radosevich has, and he, out of all of us, probably saw the most detail in what happened on Monday, and will tonight as well on Wednesday.
You know who could possibly be interested in LASIK vision? Maybe they would have been able to foreseen something coming.
Is it a political figure or a sports figure?
Neither,
Is it
actually.
P. Diddy?
The captain on the Singaporean ship in Baltimore this week. Enjoy Vision is the best laser vision center in Oklahoma City. It's not even close. The combination of mind-blowing technology. I don't know why anybody's laughing. It wasn't a joke.
I don't think any of us
Experienced
are laughing.
eyeball surgeons and exceptional patient care was life-changing. Enjoy Vision, what they're doing for the unofficial 40 listener, giving $400 off of LASIK. If you are interested, go to enjoywithme.com. That is the letter N, J-O-Y with me.com. Use promo code U40 for $400 off LASIK. Enjoy Vision. This is where you LASIK.
All right. One of the things that I think stood out to me is just seeing that running back room. And we can get into Javonte Barnes and all that, but just physically how they look. And I know how the fans out there view this. Like, some people have given up on Javonte Barnes. And to be honest, I think we all have questions about it. Is he a difference maker? Can he be a guy that has a little bit more elusiveness to him or better decision-making in the whole? But I think everybody believes Gavin Sawchuk's going to be really good. After that, Caleb Hicks, a lot to be figured out there. But those three guys look the part. Now, I think Sam Franklin looks like the least impressive of all four of those guys. But, Tennessee Martin transfer, guy that had a good career. I know people, I've watched a lot of tape on him in college. Not a guy that has a lot of highlights just breaking away from the pack and things like that. But I walked away probably, other than the secondary, thinking, okay, well, they look good at running back.
Well, I
not
think,
to mention who's coming in and who is, the young guys.
I get the sense Sam Franklin is like an insurance running back.
Yeah,
like,
I
he's
think
he's
so.
like if in an ideal situation, it's Gavin Sawchuk and Javonte Barnes. It's the same situation as last year. It's just, can those two guys stay healthy? Because both have now battled several injuries. I thought Javonte looked great yesterday.
There's a
or
lot of
Monday.
stuff that
He's
was
never not looked
explained.
good, though, physically.
No, but we
But
haven't seen him run.
Knowing, though, everything that we do know now and him talking about it, which we talked about on the YouTube show, we wrote about it as well, just in terms of him not being healthy all year, that at least goes in the back of my mind, okay, maybe it's certainly not an excuse, but maybe it explains more why that season was so mysterious for him.
For all the
And
people that
moving
gave
forward,
up on him, maybe there's a
like,
reason for it.
Like he was hurt. He couldn't go because
He literally
was hurt.
told DeMarco he couldn't play.
Right.
I mean, that's why he wasn't in the game. Is because he couldn't play.
He's kind of back to where he was, in my mind, a year ago, where it's like he had a really good freshman season. He looked like a physical downhill runner, maybe with a little bit more confidence in his health and knowing that he's healthy, he's going to be able to produce a little bit more.
Josh, have you
Or
been
a whole lot more.
Has it surprised you what you've seen so far from him on versus what you saw of him coming out of high school?
Very much so. I was actually thinking today I was going to work on a story like 5 guys that I think I had right coming out of high school, and then 5 guys that I think I had wrong. And I don't know if he's going to be wrong yet, but based on what I saw last year, I feel very wrong. But with all this considered, it definitely changes the narrative. Because, again, guys, I thought of the 2 backs in that same class that was very, very good for DeMarco Murray with Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk. Barnes was my favorite. He was the guy that I thought would be the number 1 guy, and Sawchuk would kind of be the speed, kind of change of pace guy. And obviously that's not how it's worked out, but I still am a big believer in his talent, and it makes me it's a shitty thing to say. It makes me feel better that he was hurt last year to have some explanation for what happened.
100%. When you talk about physicality, though, and the way that they looked, I really am intrigued to see what Caleb Hicks can do.
Yeah.
This is a big
He
spring for him
looks
because I
good.
think that there are carries to be had in that backfield. And if you're looking for somebody that, we saw Gavin, he needs to stay healthy. But if you're looking for somebody that could also be a big home run hitter type guy, it might be Caleb Hicks.
The thing with Caleb, I think that he looks awesome.
Yeah.
It's just, does DeMarco trust him?
100%.
That's what it comes down to for him.
It's good news if he can trust him, if he can block, if he can do everything that is asked outside of carrying the football.
And DeMarco kind of laid into, and DeMarco's very,
he's a hard ass.
Yeah, he's a hard ass type of coach, and
He's old school.
He
That's
laid
what
into
people
him
don't
on
realize
Monday, on one drill. But I think that he's a guy that looks the part. Emeka Megwa, I mean, he might be their best looking running back, but he's always hurt. I mean, he got a little dinged up on Monday.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think he's going to play, but he looks incredible.
he looks incredible. Spends a lot of time in the weight room, obviously, but I don't think that you're going to look up and all of a sudden he's going to be the guy that is getting a bunch of carries by any means.
To me, the X factor in that room is the guy that's not on campus yet, and it's can Taylor Tatum, be a contributor? Because I think that they have a good room. Taylor Tatum can make him a great room.
Yeah. He's young. He's probably not going to be a guy that gets a bunch of carries, but Xavier Robinson
looks good.
He looks great. Would he be something of a red zone type guy when you get inside the 5, turn around and be able to hand it off? Now, a lot of what we're talking about with the running backs is, kind of goes back to what is the theme of the spring and going to be the theme of the offseason, what they do on the offensive line and how good that group can be.
Okay. I know there was something that came up this morning. I was doing a radio report and had not put it on the board. And it was just kind of one of the things. There's a lot of things flying around the last couple of days, and I just slipped my mind, and I apologize for that. But we talked so much about the receiver room, and I think we've talked about who we've liked, and I think the one thing I still keep coming back to after watching things on Monday is like, how do you keep Jaquez Petaway off the field? Because
There's
even with Deion Burks
5 guys
and watching these other guys, I watched Jaquez Petaway, and I thought to myself, like, that dude looks like his in and out of breaks, his cuts, like he just looked noticeably more explosive than most of the guys on that field.
There's 5 guys we talked about that would be like, I think that your main kind of rotation right now would be some type of mix of Jalil, Jaden Gibson, Nick Anderson, Deion Burks, Jaquez Petaway,
Brennan Thompson.
So there's 6 guys that we really talked about on the YouTube show that I think going into spring or in this time period, you look at that's kind of your rotation right now. Josh, I thought Ivan Carey on Monday he's dropped a little bit of weight, I think. Starting to lean out, maybe, from what I never saw him in person in high school. I thought he looked incredible.
He's just so tall.
Yeah.
Like he just
He
stands
sticks out from a big group.
He's very, very tall. Like, you're like, because you see that 24 and you're like,
I thought he was a tight end. I thought it was like one of the tight ends at first. And then I was like, oh no.
but I mean, even in person, he's basketball tall.
Yeah, he's big, but he's not skinny.
Right.
He's a thick guy as compared to maybe somebody like a Jaden Gibson.
Yeah, he's not like filled out like a Nick Anderson, but he's not a string bean like Jaden Gibson.
Somewhere in between those two guys when they came to campus.
Yeah.
Now, I think what you were getting at, Carey, this is not a group, when you're talking about the wide receiver position, that missing spring would be good. And it sounds like Andrel Anthony has that situation at his hands, as well as Gavin Marshall, who wasn't practicing on Monday as well.
Gavin Freeman.
Yeah. Gavin Marshall not here.
No, I had, and look, I think that's a real key. I mean, you've got Jackson Arnold. He's got to establish. And here's something else. Like watching Jalil Farouk, and I know I always go to bat for him. And but I mean, can you guys not? Did you not kind of get a sense of watching? Like, okay, that's a veteran. Like you watch Jalil Farouk run routes, and everything he does kind of is done with purpose. Whereas some of the guys, they're just kind of figuring things out. Like, I think Jalil Farouk is a really important piece for Jackson Arnold with the Andrel Anthony situation because he needs a go-to guy. He needs somebody where he knows if he's going to let the ball go, that he's going to be there.
I think it's going to be Deion Burks. Just watching the 7-on-7 stuff, they are doing a lot of different.
Well, it could be, but the point is he needs someone in camp right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think Farouk's going to play a role. I just don't think he's the number one receiver.
Well, we have established that you're a hater, so from the very beginning.
I like Jalil Farouk, but I don't think he's a number one receiver.
Actually, more people are on your side right now.
I know.
After the fumble in the.
You were wrong
fumbles.
on Jalil Farouk and Tawi Walker.
You can't say that you were right on Jalil Farouk. How was I wrong? Is Tawi Walker the starting running back? Is he still here at Oklahoma?
He was their best running back a year ago. And
That's
you shit on me when I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna write about Tawi Walker.
I did. Well, you did fall for the walk on. Yeah.
I don't fall for anything. I write about good football players. Tawi Walker was a good football player.
Based on what we've seen, would it be best for Farouk to be the number 3 guy, to not have to carry that mantle of you're the guy we're going to force feed?
He's not a number 1 receiver.
Yeah.
No.
And if he's your number 3, that's great. That's really good.
If you had him with Anderson and Burks, that's a pretty serious threesome to roll out there.
But here's the problem with Burks is he wants to play that Drake Stoops role, that slot guy. Jackson Arnold's biggest strength is throwing the ball down the field. He needs, whether it's Nick Anderson or Jaden Gibson,
Brennan Thompson.
Like that's the problem with spring and Andrel Anthony being out. And I'll talk about his situation here in a sec, but he needed this spring with Andrel Anthony. And he wasn't supposed to get it. Like Justin Harrington got hurt before, a game before, 2 games before?
Harrington got hurt in the SMU game, which was the second game of the season, and then
what game was it?
Andrel Anthony got hurt in the Texas game.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
6th.
So yeah,
5th or 6th.
Harrington should have been ahead of Andrel Anthony, but what I was told is that he had the initial surgery, and during the rehab there was kind of some stiffness that they couldn't get past, so he had to go in and have a cleanup, and so he's a little bit more behind than they thought initially. So he probably will not be full go when the season starts next year.
And it's one of those things that
not the biggest thing. I'm more worried about like by September, is he able to run? Is he going to be able to recover from this? And then you get into like the actual on-field
When is he
stuff.
going to be like 100%? That's the thing. He could go through half the season.
It's worrisome for a guy
fall
that
out a little
banks
bit.
on his speed and ability to run really good routes.
But if there's one room that can take that hit, it's that
wide
room.
receiver.
Yeah, I mean they've got so many guys.
But the
Like
thing
I
is,
think Jaden Gibson's
Andrel
gonna play a
Anthony
lot.
is a hell of a good receiver.
Yeah.
And now you're not going to have that to start the season. And you've got a quarterback that's, figuring out his way. Let's face it. I mean, right now, as we stand here right now with Jackson Arnold, he's a 5-star coming in, but we don't know if he's going to be a guy that's a high interception, high touchdown guy, or, a guy that throws like that when guys that win Heisman, they throw a lot of touchdowns and they don't throw a lot of interceptions.
Yeah.
Jackson
that's
Arnold
what Baker and Kyler were so good about,
Yeah.
not turning the ball over.
And,
Outside of everything else that went along.
Even Dylan was really good about it last year.
Sure.
I mean, he really was good about not turning the ball over.
I mean, it's an obvious statement, but you turn the ball over a couple times against Auburn on the road for the first time, that thing could really get off track really quickly. And I think that everybody feels like, and in talking to Jackson on Monday, he's talking about making quicker decisions, talking about the interceptions. I thought he had a pretty funny comment about just basically getting off social media in general, which I kind of like the self-deprecation to a certain extent, but it's a very real problem until you prove otherwise, that you don't like turning the ball over and throwing the ball to the other team. But I think at the same time, we all would agree that everybody around here feels like Jackson Arnold's going to be the guy. And not only is he going to be the guy, but he could be one of the better quarterbacks that's played here in a while.
People just need to be ready for him to go through some growing pains, or especially early in the season.
It's a little naive to think right now that he's going to have less than, like 8 turnovers next year. You're going to have to go through the ups and downs of playing a freshman quarterback.
I think I would say right now, if, you put the crystal ball out there, it's going to be, hopefully, I think the best possible scenario is he's one of those 25 touchdown, best case scenario, probably like 10 to 11 interceptions.
Perhaps a terrible comparison, and Manziel was obviously starting as a true freshman, right? Mm-hmm. He turned the ball over 9 times in 2012.
I think red shirt. I want to say he was a red shirt.
Okay, well then maybe it's this same kind of fit. I don't think he's going to win the Heisman Trophy next year by any means.
No.
But
that speaks to the offense, though, too. I mean,
sure.
This offense, new offensive coordinator. This is not a doom pod. We're not trying to do a doom pod here. I swear to God. But
I'm ready.
But from what I've heard of what's happened so far in camp, the defense, and we should know this. I mean, everybody should be able to wrap their head around this. The defense is way ahead of the offense.
And it should be. How many veteran guys are back, and they're now in their 3rd year in the system? You bring in a guy like Allie.
We're out there at practice on Monday. Billy Bowman's literally coaching the secondary.
He was. He was
talking to Stutzman. I mean, he's just, he's on a different level. I mean, you've got another year for Kip Lewis, Jaron Cannon, like all these guys on defense. They should be ahead. And whereas on offense, I think they're still trying to figure out, the calls and how Seth Littrell. Like, I mean, that's what Jackson said.
They all had the headsets on, working on the head, the in-head stuff, the
Jackson said the
stuff.
biggest thing right now for him is just the communication between him and Littrell. And he goes, honestly, he's like, I'm not even, because I asked him straight up, like, what's the differences between what you guys are doing with Seth versus what you were doing with Jeff Lebby? And he said, well, there's not a ton, but he goes, we're really not going to know until he calls a game. Like until he goes, even the spring game, like he'll call some of it and like call some plays, but like until we get into a real game, we don't really know how he's going to call it.
Sure.
So, I mean, I think that's all going to be stuff that you're not going to know until, August, September.
Let me hit on, transfers, first and foremost, because, you kind of pay attention to, everybody that's new, you really try, and we'll do that again today. But I would say one of the guys that really flashed to me, when we were out there defensively, and it's no shortage of good-looking guys on defense, especially in the secondary. But Des Malone, I thought just his size, like being a transfer, being a guy that's played a lot of football, and just watching him kind of just do individual drills, I was really impressed with him.
He looks like a older gentleman in comparison to a number of the other guys that are out there. Like, he reminds me a little bit. And it might be because he has dreads hanging out of the back of his helmet. He reminds me a little bit of Justin Harrington, just in terms of a guy that showed up and it's like, oh, he's a little bit older than everybody else, it seems.
Well, what's weird is he's wearing 12. He doesn't look that different from Key Lawrence. Key Lawrence was maybe a little bit longer.
Is he a little bit taller?
I can look it up, but I think people need to get familiar with Des Malone because I think he's going to play quite a bit. And the guy that I think people are forgetting about, Kenai Walker. I think he is also going to play quite a bit.
You look at that cornerback group and you can name off 4 or 5, 6 guys. Now, I think that we were in kind of the same position a year ago, and all of a sudden they didn't really have a whole lot of depth because of injury. But there's a number of those guys. Even Josiah Wagner, I think he added some good weight during the winter and looks like a little bit closer to the part than maybe a true freshman did a year ago.
from talking to people kind of behind the scenes with Josiah, he's still just a little bit of up and down. Like he shows flashes, but he also, is that guy that's kind of like, you got to get past that. You got to figure that out.
There's so many of those guys that it feels like this is a really big spring for them to take that step forward. Whether it be a Samuel Omosigo or Lewis Carter, certainly just being out there on Monday, it seemed like we were really impressed with the tight end position. I thought Bauer Sharp really looks
and he
much
was the
better
second
than I was
guy I was going to
expecting.
bring up. Like transfer-wise, I think he was the guy that stood out to us as much as maybe even more so than Des Malone.
Definitely, that whole tight end room is just so much more athletic.
Yeah,
so much more athletic. Guys that can run. Devon Mitchell he's going to have some, growing pains in terms of, I think, run blocking. But in terms of a pass catcher, I think he can help them immediately. And then Bauer Sharp, he's taken, I think, all the first-team reps right now at tight end with Jake Roberts out.
Yeah, and I know that you were saying there's some folks that really feel like kind of Jake Roberts is going to maybe have a little bit bigger role than maybe just the outsider would think.
Well, I just think he's played the most football of anybody in that room. I think he's going to be able to do things like he's going to be able to run block. He can do some stuff in the passing game. Like, I just think his experience in that room is going to be super helpful for them. I'm not saying he's going to go out and have 500 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns, but I just think he's going to play quite a bit because of his experience, whereas you have the rest of the room that's super athletic and talented. They just haven't played a whole lot of college football.
And I know that this is just so moronic because he hasn't been able to just even practice, but you see Caden Helms, if he can just stay healthy, there's something there, Josh. There's something there. He looks great.
He's one of those guys, I remember out of high school, you're like, the movement skills, all the length, you're like, okay, that's there. And then when you guys are telling me that he's putting on good weight and it looks the part, it's not just like, oh, he's a wiry guy out there. That's all a step in the right direction. But guys, can you think of a player that's had, through a couple of years on campus who's frankly just had less opportunity just to practice?
Sure.
Forget games.
It's
like
kind of
it's just odd.
In today's world, you just don't see a guy hang around for 2 years if he goes through something like Caden Helms has.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's what I thought was interesting. You guys were talking about some big springs for a lot of these guys. There's several guys on this roster that I think are absolutely good players, but there's going to come a point where they say, it's just not going to happen for me here. I'm going to have, and so you kind of wonder, how is this going to shuffle out? And I think in some situations, it's multiple guys at the same position, like linebacker. There's a log jam there of really good, talented players that are not going to get a lot of snaps this year. So are you going to find some guys that are just like, I'm here, I'm stuck, I'm dug in, I buy into the culture and the soul mission and all that stuff. And then you're going to have some other guys that say, man, I want to play. I want to go somewhere that I can play. And I wonder how that looks for a few of these guys and kind of what their responses are to how things go this spring.
Number 3 on my transfer impression list, and I think fans are going to like this, and it could be number 1, which, given the position, it might be the most needed position. But Tyler Keltner at kicker, was it Eastern Washington transfer?
Well,
Eastern
Florida
Kentucky.
State, Eastern Kentucky to Florida State, Florida State to OU.
Okay. So even before they started kicking, I was talking to somebody, and they were like, you need to check out this Keltner kid because he's been really good. And then he goes out and he nails pretty much every field goal during drills. But
indoors, I will say, it was all indoors.
But his leg looks good.
His leg does.
His accuracy was good.
I don't know if this is a
They're
bold
excited
prediction,
about
but
this guy.
I think he's going to win the job. That's my bold prediction.
And I don't know if this will sound bad. I just hope that it's truly an open competition and they don't just, even if it's close, side with the incumbent in Zach Schmidt. And I like Zach, but you got to make kicks. You can't miss kicks. That could be the difference in winning or losing, especially early in the season.
Yeah. The fan base might riot if they just
walk
out Zach Schmidt again.
If nothing else, it makes you feel a little bit better that there's a new set of eyeballs on that operation with Doug Deacon. And, certainly it's not going to be some type of conspiracy. Whoever they send out there is going to be the guy. And I could even see, George, that this thing goes into the middle of September and they give each guy opportunities during games.
Yes.
Now you hope that you have leads against Kent State or whoever the hell, Temple,
Houston,
any of those teams, Tulane.
Yeah.
Outside of that, the biggest area is offensive line with transfers. And, I think you guys saw a little bit more than I did because I would kind of – they were the furthest away from us as anybody. But it was more noting who was playing interior and who was playing, tackle, I think.
It's just so hard because I think that offensive line, and especially with the way that Bill operates, that – whatever that first group that they run out there, that's nowhere near what they're going to be running out there.
They had like 3 different groups, and you could tell it was mixed and matched. Where it was like it wasn't all because like Spencer Brown was with like I think like Isaiah Autry at one point. Like it was definitely a different.
He's rotating, figuring out what the combinations look like.
But I'll tell you one guy
together
that I think is going to win a starting job is Heath Ozeta. I thought he looked really good. I think he is going to end up being one of those starting guards.
Did you guys not say that you felt like Fabechi? I won't even try. I was looking for the phonetic spelling.
Wee-woo.
Like, didn't you say that you thought he looked as good as anybody out there?
If I had to guess the starting offensive line today, it'd be Troy Everett at center, Wee-woo at right guard, Ozeta at left guard, Jacob Sexton at left tackle if he's healthy, and Spencer Brown at right tackle. That is, to me, I think, the starting offensive line as of today.
To me, the only one of those that I even think is that, like, is even close to a coin flip would be Ozida at left guard. Mm-hmm. That's the only one that I would wonder a little bit about. I think the other 4, we're going to go through all this and we're going to talk about it. I'd bet money if those 4 are healthy, they're starting.
Yes. And I think Michael Tarquin's kind of that swing tackle right now.
How close do you think center is?
Troy Everett he was the guy that was, going first every time in the individual drills at center. So, I like Bates. I just think that Bill really likes Troy Everett.
How we find that out.
And he got up he's over 300 pounds now. I think he's a smart guy. I think he's really tough. I just think they like him a lot.
How we find that out is we think Everett's going to be the guy. So until Bill Bedenbaugh starts trying guys that are guard at center, he's probably happy with Everett. Like if he starts trying to Eugene Brooks or something at center because he thinks he might be one of his best young interior guys, but he knows he's not going to be a starter. If he starts messing with him at center, that's when okay, he doesn't feel like Everett is the guy.
Also, 2 freshmen to just keep an eye on and where they're working. Eugene Brooks at guard, Daniel Akankumi both at guard, and then Josh Iasosa is working at center. He's the 3rd string center right now.
I also thought that
George, I
Logan
love when
Howland
you answer things I was going to ask. Beautiful.
You're welcome.
He's in a hot streak today.
Logan Howland looks.
Oh yeah, Logan Howland looks good.
Really good physically.
I just don't know. Like he's one of those guys.
He's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna start in front of Sexton, and I don't think he's gonna start in front of Spencer Brown. So
I also don't think they play him over Tarquin. I think Tarquin.
The curious case of Jake Taylor continues too.
Yeah, he's at right tackle. I don't know where he fits in.
You know what sticks out to me, and it keeps coming up, is Josh Daniel Akankumi. He can hold his own. I think you, even at the Under Armour thing, you were kind of felt the same way. And I don't know if it's just because he came from a program where he was so well coached. Like when he was like, people were asking him when we had the newcomer media day, like, it was kind of that question like, oh, I bet Schmitty's kicking your ass, isn't he? I bet that's really. He's like, no, we had that type of strength training at the NFL Academy. Like, so I don't know if it's just that he's so far ahead of where most freshmen are coming in because of his experience, or if he's just talented. I'm trying to figure out, which way that goes. Like, does he impress me every time I look at him because he's so well trained and coached, or is he really that talented?
I think he's pretty talented. I think when you watch him move around and you see his feet, you're like, okay. And I will say I like the idea of him at guard. I think that's where he has the biggest potential. He's not super long as a tackle. So I think that limits him a little bit. But, if you said 2 years from now your starting guards were, Brooks and Akankumi, you could. That's a pretty decent starting point for whatever you're going to do with the rest of your offensive line. So like I said, and I think also he's really, really mature and he's really sharp. Like he's going to pick up stuff very quickly. Just because, again, and that's part of that is where he comes from. Is they threw a lot at those young guys, and they've seen a lot of NFL terminology, ideas, that kind of stuff.
Is maybe the biggest thing for him, and I know this might be a little bit of a cop-out, but let's see where he's at when like the bullets really start flying, when you get into August and you get closer to camp and you're going against really, truly live action against other teams. Maybe that's where that disconnect between, playing what I would assume is probably not the best level of football compared to what he's about to enter.
Here's the thing with the true freshman offensive lineman. There's only one right now that I think can actually play next year, and it's Eugene Brooks. I mean, he's the only one that I think is. I mean, maybe Eddie Pierre-Louis comes in this summer and is somebody that can compete. But of all the guys out there, just watching him, Eugene Brooks is the only one, and that's why I think just looking at the bodies on the offensive line, I like it better than maybe I did a few weeks ago in terms of what the starting offensive line can be. Like the one that I mentioned, that those 5 guys, I think that can be a pretty solid group up front. I still think they need to go after maybe 1 or 2 more guys in the portal. And I think they have so many young guys.
I think that there's a very good chance, and we talked about this on the YouTube show, that there's a very good chance that I could see them taking one for each side, offensive line obviously defensive line.
Yeah, if we want to get into the defensive line stuff, it's kind of the same situation where you like some of the guys out there, but the only one that's really played any meaningful snaps is DJ Terry. Right. I mean, like Grayson Halton looks great. Devon Sears looks good. David Stone was awesome.
I walked away thinking that we'll see. He's going to have to go out and make plays, but Grayson Halton looks like he's ready to make that next step.
Him and the other one I would throw in there is Champ Sanders. I think Champ Sanders is somebody that could end up playing and at least be in the rotation. I don't know if he'll start, but I think that he can be in the rotation. But this kid from Indiana that is visiting Oklahoma, Josh, I don't know if you've done any research on him. What's his name?
Philip Bildy?
Yes. If they could get him, I think that would be huge because he could kind of fill that Jacob Lacey role of needing a veteran guy. He's played a lot of football, and it's just he's 295.
6'3", 295, 30 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2 quarterback hurries, a pass breakup last year, and 11 starts at Indiana. I guess, Josh, there has been a little bit of a question as far as like he's listed as edge, but would OU have him play inside?
I think to me, I can't imagine a world where OU needs him as an edge.
Right.
And that's not to say he's not a good player, but I think for them, he's 100% an interior guy. Like George said, probably going to be that 3 tech. Because at 295, OU doesn't have anyone at that size playing edge. And secondarily, they're pretty set. I mean, like we were talking earlier about the depth of this team. The only place on that defense that doesn't have a lot of experience and talent returning is in the interior of the defensive line. Everywhere else, that is a SEC level defense as far as talent and young guys coming along that could be really special. It's just the interior. So to me, that's the only guy. That's probably the only position other than if they found an offensive lineman who could really help.
Yeah, that's
the only guys they should be targeting in the portal.
And I will say on defense, sorry, Carey, that I think you're going to see them run a little bit more 3-man front. And some of that's because that's what Zach Alley likes to do. And I think that's also because of the personnel they have. Like where you have so many guys at linebacker and the cheetah position that you could walk up as an end or bring them on a different blitz or whatever. And you could have more playmaker. Like imagine if
they could just field a team of cheetahs, I think they'd be pretty good.
Yeah.
That shelf is stocked.
And you have so many safeties. You can play 3-man safety. You could bring in an extra guy. It's going to be interesting to see what they do with Kendall Dolby. But you have so many players at these other positions that you can get away with playing, 3 defensive linemen and have DJ Terry be your nose guard and have this Ballad guy be a 3-tech, and then you have Ethan Downs on the edge or Caden Woolard or R. Mason Thomas, whoever, and then you could walk up a Deshaun McCullough or you could walk up a Kip Lewis or Jaron Canick, whoever, to come off the edge, or maybe you just rush 3. I don't know, but I do think you're going to see them run a little bit more 3-man front than maybe they did a year ago.
I think there's 2 things about this defensive line and taking the cheetah out of it in terms of pass rush. But like you said, the interior, Josh, the interior defensive tackle, that is a position where you can see that they still need people. And maybe Jaden Jackson can be one of those guys because I thought he looked really good. But just go down the list of outside guys. I mean, like you mentioned, our Mason Thomas, which, he was hurt most of last year. We know he's a really good player. PJ Adeboroughe, when he gets going, then you got Ethan Downs and Trace Ford did some nice things last year, and then you bring in, like you said, the kid from Miami of Ohio,
Caden Woolard.
Woolard, and I thought he was okay. I mean, didn't really jump off the page extremely, but you could tell. He spent a lot of extra time with Miguel Chavis after practice on Monday.
You know who didn't want to spend a bunch of extra time with Miguel Chavis? I don't think Taylor Heim wants to spend no, it wasn't Heim, was it?
Wine.
Taylor Wine, excuse me. I don't think Miguel Chavis almost tackled him during practice.
Yeah.
While yelling at him. I thought it was funny.
Here's the thing. With all those outside guys, I think there's something special that you could do both inside and outside with David Stone. And I think if you have a three-man front, like he could play on the interior or he could play the edge guy. You can play some games with David Stone. So I'm curious to know how much of that goes on versus how much they just feel like if they put a four-man front out there at times, if that's just having all those ends is just the better play for them. It's going to be interesting to me how they really scheme things up on the defensive line because
it's just really
of David
unfortunate
Stone.
about Jacob Lacey's situation because I think you would feel so much better with him in the fold.
And I will say, I mean, we knew David Stone was going to be a good player, but to see some of the stuff he was doing on Monday of the, third practice of spring practice of his college football career, like I walked away thinking there's a chance he's like starting by the end of the season. Like he's further along than I anticipated, and we'll see. It wasn't like he was out there beating, Spencer Brown. Right. I think he was going up against, some of the younger guys up front. But like, you feel a little bit better if he's somebody that can kind of live up to the hype. And I'm not saying he's going to go out there and be a freshman All-American next year, but
and it's a little bit different in the inside drill when you know that they're not going to throw the football.
Right.
Just little things like that you keep.
But the physicality's there.
Very
much. The size is definitely there. Like all of a sudden you say, okay, he is somebody that you can kind of rely on to give you some snaps.
Well, a lot more impressions coming today. Hour and 45 minutes we're going to have to check things out, and
plus highlights. We'll have highlights.
We'll have highlights. We'll have another practice report coming up tomorrow. George, before you go, real quick, what is it today that's kind of you're planning to kind of keep a closer eye on?
Oh boy.
I think we hope to talk to Allie today.
Yes, Allie for sure.
That would be fun.
Which he is watching him at practice. He's running the defense. I mean, when they were doing the inside drill, he was talking to the D-line, he was talking to the linebackers, he was talking to everybody. He's kind of setting things up. I don't know if he's calling plays. Brent's still very involved, but Allie is definitely somebody they trust to do stuff.
Another interesting nugget I got from talking to some people is the whole emergence of Zach Alley as a member of the staff. Josh, you can appreciate this. Brent Venables, he clearly, you watch him at practice, and by the way, I should say Brent's different at practice right now. Like he's going from station to station.
You know what I noticed? He spent the most time with the position group he spent the most time with, at least when I was watching, was special teams.
Yeah.
I mean, it was because you usually when we'd go out there, he's with the inside linebackers. He's coaching up Danny Stutzman and Kip Lewis and all those guys. He was not, from what I saw, he was never really with the inside linebackers. He was over with special teams and defensive line a little bit. Like he was not. It was not the same as he usually is.
Here's another thing for you. Was told the guy from San Diego State. I can't remember his name.
Doug Deacon.
Doug Deacon.
It's like you just talked about Des.
People inside the program love this guy. I mean, I think he's a genius.
He was coaching special teams for 18 years at San Diego State. I think I looked it up when I did my special teams preview. They finished in the top 24 of the last 5 years in special teams S&P plus.
The people in the program think that this is a massive upgrade that they made.
I mean, and I think you're going to see differences in how they return kicks. Which, by the way, the NFL new kickoff rule. I wonder if the NCAA ends up.
It's going to
adopting
come
that.
to the NCAA.
I just don't know if it'll be next season.
Yeah.
Punt return, Gavin Freeman's out right now. Not exactly sure what his injury is and how severe it is, but I would be shocked if their special teams don't drastically improve. And I know the bar is low considering how bad they were last year, but yeah.
But back to the Zach Alley thing. I think that there are people that, knew, like with Ted Roof there, he was going to do whatever Brent told him to do. He wasn't going to step in anybody's toes. He wasn't going to get anybody's way. And I think this whole thing with, trying to, get Brent to be the CEO instead of, the defensive coordinator, I think we all know that. But what I've been told is like Zach Alley, unlike Ted Roof, is not afraid to basically fight with Brent if he has to get, like he's not going to back down. If Brent's like, I don't like this, I want to do something different, like Zach's going to come back at him. He's going to say, no, you don't understand. If we do this, it leads to this.
I also thought...
So he's kind of become his own man away from Brent. So I think that friction, which you guys know me, I think friction's a good thing, and you can solve a lot of things, through conflict. But I think that a lot of people like seeing that as part of the program.
I also think Danny Stutzman made a very interesting comment when I asked him and said, Brent was always the guy that would, get in your ass about something and like yell at you and tell you did something wrong. Allie now comes in after Brent does that, kind of plays the good cop and says, hey, here's what he's trying to tell you. Because I think sometimes Brent, as good as he is and as smart as he is, a defensive coordinator and as a coach, sometimes the message maybe doesn't always get through, or sometimes, different guys need to hear things different ways. And Zach Alley has become that guy that can pull Danny aside and said, hey, this is what he's talking about, why you need to fix this, versus, however else. I can't remember how Danny exactly phrased it, but
it was a good cop, bad cop type feel.
But even Zach, though, you watch him in practice, he'll rip your ass, too.
Yeah, sure. I think, too, that on top of all of that, there was a reason that all those guys love James Skalski so much. And I think a lot of that has to do with the age, being able to communicate with these guys. And I'm not saying that Brent can't communicate with these guys. That doesn't even register with me. But I do think coming from Zach Alley, somebody that's 30 years old, a little bit more fresh in idea of how to communicate with some of these guys, it seems like that's been a very good situation just in terms of the good cop, bad cop.
Also, Alley has been very involved in the special team stuff.
Yeah, he was when we were out there.
So I think he's going to help out there, too.
All right, George, appreciate it. We'll let you get out here and we'll bring Bob in. As I kept a name out of it. I don't know if anybody could hear about it, but we'll kind of start there with Bob and get some of his impressions of the 90-minute viewing portion that we had the other day, because you haven't had a chance to really talk about it. And you mentioned Jaden Rowe, and I thought he was a guy, I would say top 5. Just physically, that stood out to me. Yeah,
looks like a safety now.
But we don't know. We always heard good things about him before he got hurt. And he's long, but he's thick now. And I think the one thing, Bob, that really struck me is even without Gentry Williams out there was no lack of just, ooh, look at that guy. Ooh, look at that guy.
It's very impressive what Jay Valai and Brandon Hall have been able to do in such a short period of time. Josh, that was my answer to your Caden Helms. Who's someone that's never had a chance? Jaden Rowe's never had a chance to do anything because he hasn't been available to do anything. But yeah, when you talk about Des Malone to go along with Wood, even Jocelyn Malaska looks like I don't know.
And Reggie Powers, too.
Like what type of talent Malaska's going to bring to the table. But he looks the part right from the jump. And that's a credit to what they've been able to do throughout the transfer portal process in the last 2 cycles of getting guys that they actually truly believe can be immediate contributors.
You know what's weird is you go out there and there's so many people that have like really high numbers.
Yes.
And because Eli Bowen has like 36.
Yep.
And what's Boganowski? Is he like
26?
Is he 20, like 25 or something like that?
Yeah, it's somewhere in the middle of the 20s.
But it's like you see those guys with the high numbers and your brain says, oh, that's
scrub.
just a scrub, a walk on. But I saw Boganowski flash in front of me. And I was like, 25, who is that? And I looked it up and said, oh, that's Boganowski. Like, that's what Boganowski's about.
Boganowski and Jaden Hardy both look like guys.
Jaden Hardy, too.
Jaden Hardy
that are going to be really,
good.
really good. They're going to have a future in the program. But I also do fall back on this idea that because there is so much depth there, I think a redshirt year would be very, very good for those guys.
Yeah.
But they do look the part in terms of, holy crap, this guy was in high school 2 months ago.
Well, and we say, Josh, well, the defense is clearly ahead of the offense, but when you see freshmen out there, like, okay, you know that's not like Woody Washington level of physicality and just the way you look, and even Gentry Williams was a freak of a guy when he first came in, but it's kind of like that. You see, it's a baby monster. Kind of like with Boganowski and some of those other guys. It's like, there's something hiding in there that's going to come out. It's just and that's what, and you're going to see it in Alabama, with their young guys, or you're going to see it at Texas A&M on defense with their young guys. It's very talented, young guys that you can tell has a skill set that's different than most people's, but maybe they're just not there physically yet. Kind of like with Devon Mitchell.
Yeah, guys, what I notice, and I'd be interested, you guys, it's so interesting that we have these conversations and then I kind of see them, I see the input and you guys kind of see the output once they're there and they've had some work. But what I notice is there's no longer this deal where like, oh my gosh, this guy's the outlier, and he's a good looking player. But like, if they have a guy that sticks out amongst their defensive class, he's a mutant, like Danny Okoye or PJ Adebawore, like guys that are like, they would stick out in any class in the country. Rather than like, oh, this guy's a good looking player. And I don't want to list a name and like insult somebody from the past, but like, there were guys that would come in the mid 2010s and they would arrive and it'd be like, oh, that guy looks great. But it was because most of his peers were a little undersized weren't the elite athletes. Now defensively, they're rolling guys in. I mean, Bob mentioned Jocelyn Malaska. Jocelyn was probably going to start at Utah if he didn't get hurt early last year, and it knocked him out of the. I mean, and that guy's a walk-on for you. Like it's really unbelievable how really roster-wide they've rebuilt the way that whole defense looks.
Well, the other thing is like some of the transfers will come in. And you're like, yeah, that guy's just not quite where everybody else is physically, and he's been in college for like 3 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that stood out to me. You guys mentioning Malone, that he really looked the part. He wasn't out of place because some of these guys come in and you kind of wonder. And guys, I remember when Kenai Walker showed up and you guys were like, holy crap, Kenai Walker looks unbelievable. And he did, relatively speaking. But now you get these other guys coming in, and it's not like they stick out the same way.
That's what your room is supposed to look like. Yeah, that's what your room is supposed to look like. Yes,
exactly.
The one guy I feel like we haven't mentioned in the cornerback room that probably needs to be mentioned because we've talked about him before, and I think that he has a bright future. Jacoby Johnson continues to be a guy that I think and when you start thinking about what they're doing with Woody Washington right now, I know that we talked about it a little bit on the YouTube show. I think that's a very real thing about him maybe not playing cornerback this year.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean,
where are they going to put him?
Thank you. Where are you going to put him then?
I mean, Dolby's got to be on the field. You've got three safeties that would start for OU, any OU defense for the last decade.
I could argue that
it's amazing.
Gentry and Kenai or Gentry and Jacoby or whoever could end up starting at quarterback if you're going to really move Woody Washington around.
Yeah.
I think the one person that probably, and this is one of my biggest questions, like, where's the development for Peyton Bowen in this situation? Like, because there were times in 7-on-7 where Woody was just playing regular safety and not cheetah.
And again, I think that that's one of those things that you kind of got to read between the lines, like how much of this is just a spring thing.
Just an experiment.
And it's a 7-on-7, 15-minute period versus when everybody exits the building and what are they really doing behind closed doors.
Yeah, exactly.
Which you saw in the video they released Tuesday. They were like, wait a minute, we didn't see any of that.
Yeah, we were not there for the team period.
I think it's a good point, Josh. I mean, we know that Kendall Dolby can be a difference maker for them in the game. And, with Justin Harrington's back and he's healthy, then you have options, whether you're pass or run heavy.
Is it? I asked George this the other day. Is it realistic that Justin Harrington gets all the way back? I mean, you do have to be concerned about somebody that has had ACL injuries in both knees. That's the reality of the situation. As much as I like Justin and I love the story of him trying to come back for another year,
and that's why you need Deshaun to make the leap. And that's why I hope we get to talk to him today because I think that was another guy that was just banged up throughout the last half of the season and just trying to gut it out and just wasn't the same type of performer that we thought we were going to see throughout 2023.
Bob, I know you've been listening kind of what we've been talking about, but was there anything that you kind of caught your eye that maybe we haven't mentioned so far?
Nah, because for me, it is tight ends. I know I'm fixated on that position that going into spring and just looking at Bauer Sharp and how comfortable Mitchell appears to be, and then knowing Jake Roberts is still about to join them, and just the night and day difference and how athletic they look, and how I feel like they don't want to take a shot at Stogner, but it's like this room's actually going to be a real piece to the offense.
It's said without saying it, and
Jackson Arnold's comment to your question, Eddie, was perfect. He's like, I don't know how to say this, but it was perfect.
They have more able bodies, and I think 85% of this is because we made the trip up there. I still think Cade McIntyre can be a really good football player. I don't know how. He's just one of those guys that just get him on the field, let it figure itself out.
By the way, I think if we're talking, we did leave one guy out when we're talking about transformative seasons from last year to this year. Robert Spears Jennings looks fantastic.
Yes.
How did we go an hour without mentioning him? He might have been the most impressive guy out of anybody.
Well, and here's the thing too. He had the shoulder injury. He was a guy that is, what is it that they say? Your heart is bigger than your head, or your mouth is bigger than your stomach. He was killing people, but he didn't have the body to hold up to the way that he played football. Now that he's starting to have that body, I think the sky's the limit for him.
That goes back to the Woody question. You're not going to play Woody at safety if Robert Spears Jennings is still doing what he's been doing.
Well, and that's why that it's another reason that whole 3-3-5 thing makes a lot of sense to me, because then you can get Bowen, Bowman, and Robert Spears Jennings, who I've said all along, I think Robert Spears Jennings is just wildly underappreciated by the OU fan base. I think he is an NFL type of guy.
That trio just right there.
Right.
That's maybe one of the best Oklahoma safety groups that they've had, 10 years at least.
Well, and the other guy that we know that the coaching staff likes as a young guy is Makari Vickers, and he's just banged up right now.
Yep. Whatever happened at was it Bedlam, I think? Bedlam is where he went down, and he's never been back since.
I think that's right, because it was Kenai that got hurt in Provo. I think that's right.
And it was real, it was after the play or something. It wasn't it was kind of random. If I remember right on Vickers, it didn't seem like it was part of what was going on. It was like somebody rolled on him or something.
All right. We're going to be out there again today, so a lot more to come, especially on the YouTube channel throughout the week until we reconvene for another unofficial 40 next week. But Josh, I don't know that we have a recruiting report this week, but it's getting ready to pick up. I know, especially with the coaches, being at practice and people being able to come in and out. And I know, what was it? Who is the transfer that came out today that's going to visit?
Pecola. It's a 2025 Pecola kid. Go ahead, Josh. Take it.
Who actually literally was offered.
Who got offered as we're potting.
Oh, okay. But there was another guy, right?
Dakota Terrell.
Is that, okay.
That's who. That's the kid
Pecola
from Pecola.
kid.
But who's that? Wasn't there a kid that's entering the portal?
The Blitty guy from
kid
Indiana.
from
that's
Indiana.
spring game.
That's the defensive lineman coming in for the spring.
Okay.
That's spring game.
Okay.
Yeah.
But let's start with him.
Yeah. With Dakota Terrell, a kid from Pecola, of all places. And Bob could speak more. I know he had some basketball interest. I won't pretend I know really what that's like. But his dad actually is I think played in I believe it was the old ABA. If people even remember that, the Oklahoma City. What were they called? The Cavs? Were they the Cavs? Is that
Cavalry?
right?
Yeah, right.
Cavalry. Yeah. I remember going to a couple games as a kid. Yeah, but he didn't play for them, but that league, I think it was the ABA, if I remember right. Is that? I don't know. It doesn't matter.
CBA?
Anyway,
the Cavs?
Yeah. What was that?
Oklahoma City
Cavs?
CBA. That's
CBA.
it. CBA.
That's what it
CBA.
was.
It was the Cavalry.
The Cavalry, yeah.
I was
Cavs.
Yeah. So his dad
They were
played
awesome.
some kind of lower level basketball, and had gotten a lot of notoriety. Well, people started watching his football tape, and this guy he's listed at 6'9". Judging on some pictures I've seen, I would guess 6'6", 6'7" is probably more accurate. Either way, he's a tremendously large.
All future
wide receiver.
recruits have to stand next to Ivan Carey to
Yes,
determine if
absolutely.
he's really that tall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That if you, we really should have categories. Like if you're 6 foot or below, you've got to stand next to like Drake Stoops. Like okay, we kind of got that picture. If you're 6'3" to 6'5", okay, we've got this guy. We need some scale for all these guys. But yeah, this is like I said, Michigan offered him about 10 days ago, and you could tell like, okay, things are starting to pick up, things are starting to change. I had spoken to him last week and had it in last week's scoop that Oklahoma had no contact with him. And I really thought, okay, they're just focusing on the receivers they've got. And, this guy probably just not a fit, because even at, if you want to call him a tight end, then that's fine. But they still are kind of set there as well, or look to be in good position with several tight ends. They brought him up today, picked up an offer while he was on campus. I've talked to Dakota enough. This is a big deal. Like if Oklahoma really wants to pursue him and really goes after him, I think they'll be pretty hard to beat in his recruitment. So we'll see. I mean, I haven't obviously, like I think Bob put it in our DMs. This happened like 20 minutes ago. Like this offer's all very new. We don't have a lot of detail on what was laid out, where they see him fitting in. If he's going to be kind of an athlete and they'll let his position work itself out. I don't know any of that yet.
And you can't even see it in the Twitter tags. He has Joe John Finley and Miguel Chavis.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Interesting.
I see Bob. God, Bob's always on top of it.
Just watching the
that.
huddle, which I think this is the first time I've ever watched a Piccolo kids highlight film. It's kind of crazy to think if he really is 6'7", 6'8", for him to be able to move this way. It's not, I guess gangly would be the best description. He doesn't look like a deer.
Yes, which you run into with guys like this a lot. That they haven't grown into their body, which is crazy. Like I said, now the thing that there's been a lot of concern about is like, oh, can he put weight on? Well, I actually was talking to some people around Picola. I think that's how you say that. I hope I'm saying it right.
It is.
And his his biological father, who I don't know what the relationship is now. But they showed me some pictures of this guy when he was in his playing days. He's kind of a big power forward looking guy. So there's reason to believe genetically he's going to start filling out that frame. And then if you do that, then, we talk all the time about power forwards just being NFL tight ends, in a different sport. So I think that can take care of itself. And again, if you see a guy that's that big and that long and athletic, that's not a bad chance to take.
Do you ever worry that you're becoming Jimmy the Greek when you start talking about parents and how they looked and how they're expected to, look that way when they get older? It's you're tiptoeing the line a little bit there.
Oh, always.
It's actually not cancelable, but it's one of those things that people try and make cancelable.
Yeah. There are a lot of times where I'll say stuff. And it's more of the concern of saying the things I'm saying about a 17-year-old young man. And I'm like, somebody's mom's going to call me pissed about this. Like, somebody's going to be unhappy.
I'm surprised that hasn't happened or happened more. Like, he's a person.
I get more mad. I get parents that are mad about rankings or that, OU hasn't offered a guy. And I'm like, that's not my deal. I'm not in charge of that. But I've rarely ever had one. The one thing that I think is questionable about the things that I do is the way I term things sometimes. And I've never had a parent come back to me mad about that. And they probably have every right.
I'm just an old man that's been doing this for a long time.
Josh, there are some decisions coming up, and you're going to be at one of them on Friday. A guy that I think probably people that have followed the scene are pretty familiar with Tory Blaylock making his announcement coming up on Friday.
Yeah, the explosive back from Tascasita, kind of North Houston area in Humble. And, he's announcing at 3 o'clock Central on Friday. I'll be there for the announcement. May have the children in tow, so that could just be a very interesting Good Friday little curveball in my life. But
hand out Chuck with Easter eggs. or just
Yeah,
go with the
exactly.
full bunny.
You really
We're
want
gonna
Josh to
make
be on
the
some type
whole
of list,
thing.
don't you?
Yes, that is. Oh, it's not good. But no. I spoke to Blaylock, I guess 9 days ago now, something like that, at the Houston Under Armour event, and we talked about this last week, Eddie. There is not a lot of subterfuge coming from him. He's not, like I knew one official visit I'm going to take. It's to Oklahoma. I know that I'm going to make a decision sometime here before too terribly long. And, Oklahoma's kind of the one school I know I'm going to visit. Okay. Could something crazy happen? Sure. Something crazy could happen. I think Oklahoma's in really good shape here. I think there's a decent chance that they've told Tory Blaylock he is going to be their back in this class. Now, maybe somebody else emerges or whatever, but there's a very realistic possibility if they can get his commitment on Friday that he is the running back for their 2025 class, and then they move forward to that 2026 group that we've talked so much about with Jonathan Hatton already committed, Caden Jones being an OU legacy guy, and then Javian Osborne making multiple trips up to Oklahoma and is, on three's number one running back in the country. So I get why they're doing what they're doing, and it makes a lot of sense to kind of push for Tory and get this done and then start kind of focusing on the next group.
To go back even a week further, we talked to Landon Rink, or no, that was the same one. It was in the Houston camp. You talked to Landon Rink. Mm-hmm. He basically said, yeah, I'm probably not going to make any type of announcement or any big decisions. That changed on Wednesday morning.
Yeah, announces with our guy Chad Simmons that he is going to make his announcement on April 3rd. I guess that a week from today. Is that how that works
a week
out?
from
Yes,
today.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So there is, with Rink, the only kind of curveball to this, because it's really been to everything I've heard, it's been Texas A&M and Oklahoma for a while now. The only possible curveball is what you just said, Eddie. I talked to him in Houston, and he says, I'm not going to make any big decisions. I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to take my officials. I'm going to Oklahoma on June 21st and, yada, yada. Well, he goes to Ohio State last week. I'm told that visit went really, really well. He enjoyed himself. They really sold him on, playing for Larry Johnson and the whole thing at Ohio State. He comes home and immediately is like, okay, I'm making a decision. It's going to be April 3rd. Do I really think that changed anything? Not really. I think it's going to come down to Texas A&M and Oklahoma. I think it's going to be Texas A&M. I just feel like they've kind of had the upper hand for a month or so now. It just something changed in February, and I've never been able to quite figure out what that was, because I almost put in a prediction for him in, I would say sometime around Valentine's Day in February, and it seemed like almost from that minute everything pivoted and A&M just kind of jumped to the forefront. Now, Oklahoma's a possibility, but I again, kind of the opposite of Blaylock. I would bet on A&M here.
Knowing nothing about the family, but I could see the new regime down in College Station changing things for him, or maybe just being more comfortable for him. And you've also said before that the drive from Cy-Fair, right? It's not too far from College Station. You're basically in the back door.
Yeah.
I literally, to get from downtown Houston to College Station, you almost have to go through Cypress. It's just right on the path. I know Carey loves a good F950 conversation. I actually bought a new truck and bought it in College Station, so I have spent some time making that drive over the last.
I didn't know
weeks.
Lexus came out with an F950, but we'll have to catch up with the friends at Eskridge.
Oh, trust
If
me. If
Eskridge
Lexus
sold the F950, I'd be in.
If Lexus had a truck, Josh would be in it, and we'd force him to buy one.
Yeah, Tiffany would probably force that. Yeah, that's a fact.
All right. Anything else that you needed to hit on recruiting wise that we need to be aware of?
No, because the Terrell stuff was going to be interesting, and we talked about Landon Rink. I would guess I would just say, and I kind of meant to hit on it last week again, just being around that camp in Houston, talking to, Kobe Sellers was down there, Jonah Williams was down there. You go down the list. Max Granville wasn't, but a lot of the familiar names that OU fans are getting to know from the Houston area. I feel like OU is right on the cusp of having kind of a historic year and, one of the most talent-rich cities in the country.
I would also say, just to wrap up this is technically recruiting side. I sent you guys the video. Taylor Tatum hit the shit out of that
Friday
baseball on
night.
Friday night.
Yes, crushed.
Absolutely crushed.
He hit that ball so hard, I felt bad for the pitcher. That
He
hanging curve that he served
absolutely
up
murdered
there.
that thing.
By the way, Josh, you should go out and film some Jonah Williams baseball. Eddie and I would like to see that.
I can do that.
Sure
I talked
he's
to
so
him about
good
it the
that
other
it might
day,
just be out here.
Yeah,
it might be on the internet. You could probably find it.
I bet. I should probably do that. I'll probably search that out. Okay. Bob, I know you've kind of hinted some things about Porter Moser, some developments of the basketball program. Why don't you
Portal Moser.
Portal
Moser season time.
We know that Otega Owe has entered the portal, which didn't surprise you.
Don't know what happened. Still, I really don't know what occurred behind closed doors during the last 2 months of the season, or if it's just that Big 12 teams knew what the heck to make him do. Like, make him take the outside shot. He's very uncomfortable doing it. He's going to not be patient enough to stay with it, so he'll start driving in uncontrollably. He'll lose the ball. Just let him make his own mistakes because he's about to do it. But, I mean, he only scored in double digits 2 out of the last 12 games. And one of them was that incredible Bedlam comeback. I mean, he'll always have that moment, but whoever he was in the first 2 months of the season was not the guy we saw during the last 2 months.
Average 15 a game in the month of November, beginning of the season, dropped to 7.5 by the time we got to March. It is what it is. And maybe it's better for both parties. I think that this is one of those perfect portal situations that he can get a fresh start somewhere. I have no idea where he ends up, but I think that both parties go, you know what? We tried. I don't think he was like a problem in the locker room or anything. So it is what it is.
And then if you're looking for another name, it's in that class. Los Uzan. It's hard for me to see him coming back. I feel like that is like a when instead of an if type of situation, and it just goes back again to keeping Javion McCollum and Jalen Moore, and then starting to hit on some portal guys, which is just funny enough, as I know we're about to get into it. A lot of OK Preps ties to some of these portal guys.
It's to the point where I think that with some of the names that have now entered the portal that have Oklahoma ties that grew up in the state, you have to hit on a couple of these guys, or you really will lose a segment of the fan base that still believes in what you're trying to build with Porter Moser and everything that goes into the fourth season and making the NCAA tournament. Sean Padula enters the transfer portal today from Virginia Tech, averaged 16 points a game over the last 3 seasons in Blacksburg, played at Edmond Memorial. Yep. I think anybody that follows high school around here, hoops, is well familiar with that name. And then the Overton kid from Drake that I had no idea was an Oklahoma City product via Norman North and then Sunrise Academy that, obviously produced Buddy Hield.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Padula. I remember his high school coach, Shane Cowherd, telling me, like, this might be the best player I've had since Christian Doolittle and Jordan Woodard. I don't understand why he didn't blow up in a national sense, but he put in the time. Blacksburg definitely improved his stock, and it's a very easy dots to connect that he'll end up being a Sooner. Feel really good about it as of Wednesday afternoon, making that happen. Kevin Overton, that's interesting because when he was at Norman North, Ben Moser was at Norman North. So it's not Porter's had a chance.
It's Porter's son, right?
Porter's son. He's had a chance to go to some Norman North games whenever he really would get a chance and see who Overton is, and maybe the growth and development going to Sunrise, going to Drake, 11 points as a freshman. That you think that can translate. And Porter has been doing this ever since he arrived. Ethan Shagwa from Union. You had Marvin Johnson. You had Sam Godwin. He wants to bring those local kids back home like a second chance to get it right. And so I see them, going after those guys. And then, of course, we all circle Brandon Garrison, the center from OSU, originally from Dell City. OU is absolutely not going to throw in the towel on Garrison. I don't know how long that's going to last. I don't know how far into the process that's really going to go, but OU it will do whatever it can reasonably do to try to bring Brandon into the Sooner family.
That's more of a, I think that would be like pipe dream type stuff.
Yes.
If you were able to get Brandon Garrison, I mean, he's one of the top 5-ish type players that's in the portal right now. But Overton and Padula seem like a reality that could possibly happen. And if you were able to do that, I think that they might be the two of the best, just in terms of Padula and what he's done in the ACC. Bring in Overton and what he could project to be. Those might be two of the better pickups that they brought in ever in the portal.
I mean, it's two guys that you think would fit really, really well. And people are like, well, isn't it just kind of low-hanging fruit, just going after some local kids? Well, it's also going to depend on how many portal spots become available. And that's why we look at a Javion McCollum or a John Hughley. It's like, how many more are you realistically going to need? If you only need 2 or 3, first of all, you're very, very happy that that's all it is. And if you can get them in your backyard and you've already know a lot about these kids and what they bring to the table and how well they're going to fit, then you've made what could have been like the most stressful month of your entire year and made it as easy breezy as humanly possible. So I know it might sound like, oh, you know, it's just too easy. You got to be going for that other guy. You got, you know, the kids from Stanford or, you know, some of those lower level kids that are like player of the year that are going into the portal. Like, if you can find the fit without having to, you know, try to go through too many hoops, then go ahead and do it.
Sean Padula would be awesome. I've for some reason, I'd loved him in high school, and I've loved watching him play in Virginia Tech. I don't know what happened there this year with kind of the ups and downs of the season for the Hokies, but I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah, what you like is he's just, you know, I think coming out of high school, people thought he'd be just a shooter, and he's actually not like this great outside shooter. But
he drives a lot.
He
to the
drives
basket.
a lot to the basket. The rebounds, the assists, the all around package. That's something you can work with. I know after you watch this last season, you're like, they need shooters. They need shooters. See if we can find one. But if you can get someone that fits like Padula, that had 16 in ACC level, which now we're finding out 4 teams in the Sweet 16.
Stop that shit, Bob.
The ACC.
They're there, I know, but Clemson and NC State playing out of their minds.
So he had one of his better games the entire season against Clemson. So it wasn't like he did it lower level opponents November, December and faded away. He was able to show it throughout the entire year.
All right, we're gonna
real
yeah,
quick.
Go ahead.
I would say too, you debunked it. We had to go back into the coaches changes thing. It makes a lot of sense that Andy Enfield could end up at SMU. It's not going to be Porter Moser.
It's not going to be Porter Moser. Sorry. I know some people might be disappointed about that, but nothing is happening on that front. That account has changed. I will be honest. I don't follow the account. Someone sent me that screenshot. The account has now changed where it is locked, and you have to be able to follow it in order to do anything.
All right. By the way, it has been fascinating just watching the coaching carousel after the first and second round of the NCAA tournament, and a lot of it's in regards to
has
OSU.
4 days,
Yeah.
Or that decision makes
Boynton
no sense.
is the
Correct.
dumbest decision in the history of college
Because of the
athletics.
buyout. Yeah.
And I think that they will. It sounds like they're centering in on the Will Lutz guy from
right?
Western
Yeah.
Kentucky.
Okay. Yeah, but that has been, they end up with Doug Gottlieb as the only hope. That
I mean,
they
there's
can.
other guys out there, but I'm just surprised that, honestly, I'm surprised that they struck out with DeVries. I really thought that was going to be the case. I think he has a relationship with Ren Baker, the athletic director at West Virginia.
DeVries and Sprinkle were the two names I just heard a bunch throughout the weekend.
Right.
And then
Didn't
just
happen.
the I don't know, backlash is the right word, but all the Calipari stuff, and Jay Wright did not help him at all. I don't know if they were friends before this. They are not after this. I don't
Thursday
think.
night, I turned on Kentucky Sports Radio after they got beat by Oakland. And it was one of those like look in the mirror moments where I know that OU fans melt down after football games.
Yeah.
This was like another like stratosphere of meltdown.
It wasn't Civil War, it was World War.
It could be compared to that, very similarly.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting discussion about how you build teams moving forward. I think every coach would admit right now, like, well, we don't know exactly
the
best way to do this.
Actually, it's a great question. It's going to be my first question to Porter whenever we talk to him again, because that was his sticking point. Let's grow older together. Is that realistic, or is it just you grow older through the portal?
And this isn't unfamiliar. I mean, this isn't just an Oklahoma issue.
Yeah.
Look at Kansas this year. Bill Self bungled that roster. First time since 1989 that UCLA, Kentucky, and Kansas isn't part of the Sweet 16. One of those three
crazy.
teams.
And those are the old systems.
And old
the
system.
pre-NIL
Well,
system.
somewhat. I mean, I think that Kansas just dumped too much money in Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough, and they didn't help out with the injuries and stuff like that. But they have a depth issue. Mick Cronin, I think a lot of the responsibility for that season at UCLA, terrible roster construction. It is definitely a big question mark right now.
Well, and nothing's. I mean, the other thing in college basketball that's, the craziest thing is the rumors about USC's head coach.
Infield. SMU.
Andy Enfield.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to make the moves because of the portal. You have to. The quicker you do,
I didn't even know that they had fired Rob Lanier, who ends up at Rice.
Yeah, that was don't think a lot of people saw that coming after the jump they made this season, but you're going to do it quickly, be assertive, and know who you want to get.
Okay, we're going to do a YouTube episode of Stickball, so let's go macro here, high level. OU baseball gets a run rule over ORU, which was kind of a nice little midweek
coming off
bump
of
for them.
Coming off of a pretty bad Saturday. You go from the no-hitter and you win 13-0 on Friday night to open the West Virginia series to kind of getting your ass kicked on Saturday, get swept in a doubleheader, first conference loss of the season. Moving forward, good performance on Tuesday night. Grant Stevens was really good in the starter role. I think he might be the Tuesday night guy here moving forward for Oklahoma, but he's also going to be a guy that can come in out of the bullpen, that kind of stuff. Kyson Witherspoon moving into the starting rotation for the weekend, and I think that is just something that, we talked to Skip about it after the game. He's basically earned that role. He pitched really well in relief on Saturday afternoon in the second game, coming in for Jamie Hitt, and I think that he has top-level stuff, and he could be a guy that you look at maybe even next season that is maybe that next. I don't think he's like Cade Horton, but he could end up being that second, third round type guy that
we didn't think
feel
Cade
like
Horton was Cade Horton at one point.
Well, it was for him. It was just he has awesome
John,
stuff.
yeah.
Can he come back from Tommy John?
Yep.
And not only did he come back from Tommy John, but he took a team to the College World Series.
And then became a darling for Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And a series coming up this weekend that's sneaky good.
Lamar, 19-4 on the season. You look at their schedule; they haven't played anybody, but at some point in the game of baseball, if you're winning at that clip, you have something good that's going on. So you need to win 2 or 3 this weekend, and then you move into next week, which is really kind of the start of what is kind of going to be the meat of their season with Oklahoma State next week up at O'Brate. So that's going to be fun. Wichita State in the midweek next week, and then they don't play another midweek game, I think, for like 2 weeks. Really just need to get some positive momentum. Really good overall. I think if you would have asked anybody, you get through the first 3 weekends and you're 7-2 in conference play, I don't know anybody that would have not signed up for that. So really good there. Baseball America came out with a way early regional projection. They were hosting. It's a lot of it has to do with their RPI. They have one of the top strength of schedules in the country. Playing at ORU last night, or Tuesday night, was the 5th team from the College World Series that Oklahoma had played this year, which is kind of insane.
That's nuts.
So we'll see. I mean, everything still is progressing in the right direction. They just need to get John Spikerman and Carter Frederick healthy. And they've had the surgeries. Now you just kind of got to wait. Really a freak injury that happened with Carter Frederick that we talked about on the Stickball last week. He basically, I think, he broke his thumb during batting practice, got hit by a wayward baseball.
That I don't ever remember that happening.
I'm sure he was standing out in the outfield, and it was just a kind of a freak accident. Softball coming off of a
offense is going.
Is it even a successful run? I mean, the 31-1.
I'm going to try to build up the Kansas because we went to Lubbock. I was like, oh man, that Texas Tech hit.
Yeah, you tried to build it up, and
then they don't care. And then you go to Baylor, it's supposed to be the Baylor pitching, but the OU offense just wore them down. And we'll talk about more just that the fifth inning of some of those games last weekend, and were really tight affairs. And then all of a sudden, it was over. And now you go to Lawrence Thursday through Saturday. They've won 7 in a row in conference. They swept Baylor. They've swept Houston. They're number 24 in one of the polls.
Patty's like, challenge us.
Yes, like no one saw, because everyone, myself included, is looking to Austin next weekend. But you got to get through Kansas first.
Patty
Kansas
okay?
is-
Is Patty okay? A little injury sideline?
She was a little under the weather Tuesday. I could see her after practice. She didn't look like she wanted to talk to us. She looked like she just wanted to get inside, but I don't think, obviously, that shouldn't be a long-term thing.
Kinsey Hansen okay?
Right?
I mean, I think that's kind of an underlying developing
Yes, it
story
is.
for the best team in the
little
country.
Tweak in the knee, and then they were celebrating Kinsey Hansen's senior day last weekend, so she got to pinch hit, and she struck out. She didn't look
Why were they doing senior day last week?
They do. It's individual seniors get.
Oh, they each have a night.
certain-
I didn't know
yes,
they did that.
Yeah, as you go throughout the conference season, and she didn't look comfortable. You could tell even Patty looked uncomfortable, but when the fans started going nuts about Kinsey being announced, didn't have a choice in the matter at that point. You got to let her do it. So we'll see with the tweak in the knee how close along she is. When Patty talked last week, she mentioned a couple weeks, if not sooner. So I've kind of circled the Texas series as to when Kinsey needs to be back.
Well, you got Kansas, then you got Texas. Then really, I mean, I don't know how, like, is UCF any good in softball?
I don't think so. They took one from OSU, I think, what was that, 2 weeks ago? I'm not really sure, though.
Yeah, and then you end with
I have no
OSU,
idea.
so I'm not sure how many
They're not better than
challenges
OU, I know that.
after the next couple of weeks for
Yeah,
them.
if you can get through this 2-week stretch, which now includes after Texas going to Wichita State on Tuesday because that was rescheduled from what was supposed to be just a day ago, then you start to breathe a little bit and, see if the team can keep that motivation going. I think when conference play started, that light bulb went on for a lot of different players.
Yeah, and for those of you outside the area, like, it's been interesting weather recently. I mean, a lot of games have had to be shuffled. Right now it's colder than they thought it was going to be.
Who could have predicted that 2 of OU's first 3 conference weekends would be double headers?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of crazy that they're 7-2, thinking that you get out of there. Like, and they never split either of them.
Yeah.
They won both of the games on Central Florida, and then obviously got swept against Central Florida. I mean, excuse me.
All right.
West Virginia.
All right. So thanks, everybody, for being a part of it. We are going to have a Stickball coming up on YouTube. Also, another practice report coming up on Thursday as well. So a lot of stuff. It's heating up. And don't forget, $1 will get you everything on Soonerscoop.com. Even tonight, we'll have information right after practice. So as we get more access and more photos, more videos.
And all interviews from post-practice stuff is up on the Sooner Scoop editorial page.
Okay, yeah, so check that out. There's
Danny, Jackson,
two different
Javante, bunch of guys.
2 different YouTube pages. There's just Sooner Scoop and there's Sooner Scoop editorial for all the interviews. So all the shows that we do mainly go on Sooner Scoop, and then all of the interviews, except for like Brett Venable's press conferences and things like that, you can go get on Sooner Scoop editorial. So thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll be back again a week from now for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com.